Alrighty, so for week 7, um, our lecture is about CEO, so search engine optimization. This is one of those topics that there's whole professions just around CEO, okay? Because imagine, right, when you're searching Google, right? Let's say any search engine, this is generally, if I was looking for boots, right? And the boots, uh, people who pay get into the sponsored areas, okay? And they pay depending on the algorithm that Google uses. Typically, they're competing against each other, believe it or not, and they don't know what the other person's paying. But then you get down into these first listings, and you can imagine like the benefit of being higher on this list. So you can either, here's the idea, you can either pay to get higher or you can understand search engine optimization to have your site be up at the top based on the way you've set it up. So, learning about search engine optimization couldn't really be more important. And I get, again, a profession by itself. Now, this video, there's a little bit of an ad kind of motif to it, but I think it really gives some good information. So, you only have to watch the first 30 minutes, right? Create a new file in your private repo in the lecture folder, name it CEO, and in there call it Guide to CEO, all lowercase .md. And then once you're done, right, give us your commits for this. So I hope you enjoy this content. Give me a little feedback on the content that you're taking in there. And then I'm going to skip to this one and come back and finish the hands-on this week. So on the current topics, frameworks, we're using a framework, a library called Bootstrap. There are many out there, and I want you to learn about them. And I suspect if you've been around a little bit, you've heard of some of these: React, Angular, jQuery, Backbone, Ember, Semantics. There's just several. Okay, so choose one to look at, and there are more than just these, right? So everyone needs a different one, and research it a little bit. Do some research of the details, share what you found about what I'd want to see in your post is like, why is React so popular? Okay. Why is what's the benefit of something like React versus Angular? Now, that's probably a little more involved, but you're just going to choose one because trust me, in your research, you will find this. There are others out there. Okay, so again, make sure you all select different ones, post this, give us links to the research that you did. All right, 150 words, 2 replies. Okay, so now let's actually do our hands-on assignment for week 7. So this is where, last week we left off with you copying the template into your root. And so now we're going to create a new page because many of you, I reviewed the ones that were selected so far for week 6. Many of you, like mine, I have mine running on the local live server, which, by the way, just FYI, this link, if you give me this in Canvas or give it to us, we'll never be able to see anything. You really have to give us the GitHub IO URL. So let me just go home here. So notice what happens. And this is, I've already talked about this, so I'm just giving you a little more content. And I'm going to actually stop, do some of the work, and then show you the results of doing the work. So in here, I have home. These are my menu items. So I want to think about how I'm going to, in this case, high level organize the content for my site. And this is all going to be about my life and the things that I'm interested in, right? So I have to think about what these are going to be. But for today, if I just click on here, notice that the URL does not change. And what happens is these are anchor links. If I right click in here and I hit inspect, you can see by me coming in here, this aref is when you see this pound about, that means it's staying on the same page. It's basically a long page. The anchors then take you to that place in the page that is linked by a pound a tag. Okay, so that's what that is. And for our purposes, I want you to have individual pages, not these anchor tags. So it will really hurt your project zero if you don't not fix, because it's not necessarily broken. It's just the way I want you to do it. So what I'm going to do is first in this first episode, this first step that you need to do is just create a new page. Just learn how to do that. So I'm going to pause just for a minute. I'm going to go do mine and then I'll show you what mine looks like. Okay, so before I even started the page, I thought I'd show you just the changes that I did and how I went about doing them. The first thing I did is I looked at that background image that was here and that portfolio, changed the names here. Some of this was just finding it, finding content in the HTML itself, right? So I had to find where my name was listed up in the port. This is the hero section. This is the hero section, right? And then up in the header section was where the other image for the portfolio was. So those were the two things, and I changed those to start with, things to be aware of, right? So one of the things that I definitely recommend, and this is why it's nice, and I'm running local server here, is that I can go look at that template and see how this was done. And one of the things I immediately, and I think I mentioned this last time, is I go into inspect. I look at, in this case, right, in the hero image here, I could roll over that image to see what the size was. And what I did is I found the image I wanted. It was much larger than what was needed. So then I changed the size. Now on the Mac, also true on Windows, you can just open these files as an example. Let me show you. If I go to Documents, or actually I just go to Actually, here's the other way you can do this kind of real quickly. Here, you can right click and open in Finder for me, File Manager for the Windows platform. Okay, so what you can do there is you can double click on images. And then what I did is I went to Tools and I said Adjust Size. And so I made it the size closest I could get it to what was in there. Now, why would you do that? Why would you do that is that generally there's already a reason that image is that size, and the designer has, in this case, this is the template, has created it so that, and I can already see on mine, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to mine, is I'm going to move me over a little bit. So I'm going to crop this. So, but for the beginning, it was fine. And I just changed some of the content. So now what I'm going to do, so I'm just giving you that. And the other thing is to be careful when you're, like I had some images out on Facebook and I downloaded them. So be careful, just conscious of where those, and I ended up using the same file names that were in there. So I didn't really have to change anything. Those were just some of my tactics, but be very careful where those, because you have it in multiple subdirectories. Okay, what do I mean by that? So part of this assignment is just file management, understanding it because I have the template setting in and I am opening just my GitHub IO, by the way, when I'm doing this work. So I have to be conscious of that I have an asset directory that's here. And sometimes if I'm not careful, I'm saving it into the wrong location. So that's why I'm continuously looking at the output to see that. Okay, now create the page and I'll talk about that. Okay, I think I'll just kind of walk you through this because what I did in my template, I was fortunate that the designer had actually created an inner page. So I just took that and I copied it and I created an about.html. Okay, that was my first step, and I do need to change the content on this. And the nice thing is because I've already, matter of fact, here's what I could do here is I could just go once I've created that page about.html and I can look at it. And what's cool is that I can already see my image showed up. I see the inner page. So I want to put some content here. It does give me a nice little navigation. So now what I want to do is update my about because the about is an anchor link, right? So then what I do is go into the index.html. I'd find my nav. Okay. And what I do here is instead of the anchor link, I would type .html. Okay. And I'm going to leave it about because that makes sense. So what's cool about that is now I have, and if I go back to home, right? Now, in this case, what happens here, and this is also something I'll need to fix, is on the About page, it also has an anchor link. So what I will need to do is make sure, and I can show you how to fix that as well. Let me just go into the index at the HTML. And then in here, now when I go to About, it brings in this page. So the thing I would also need to fix is what I just said. So let's fix that as well so that you can navigate back and forth. So now what I want to do is find that About that hero section, okay? And what I can do here, is that right? Now, again, let me shut some other things out so I'm only looking at the things that I want, right? So in the About page, where right now if you click on the link that says home, okay, what I'm going to do is instead of sending it to the anchor, because that's how it was handled before, right, I'm going to send it to the index.html. And then on the index, I could do the same here, but I might end up using some of that front page, not for separate pages, because remember this now constitutes one page. So let me just show you. Now there we go. Now I have the index linked correctly. I have the About linked correctly, and then I can move back and forth. So this is the beginning. Like, so on my About, this is my menu item that I'll then build out sub pages that come off of here. But for this assignment today, right, that's what you need to do. Create a page. Now you can choose whichever page you want to create. Right, I definitely would say if your site already has these separate pages, create one that's specific for your. Oh, I thought I put another B there, but I didn't. So create one that's for your site, right? Because now, just FYI, I think I said this, but it's good to understand this. This About is kind of my inner page About. Okay, let me go. Sorry, I'm gonna go fix that on the About. When you link, okay, so it's linking on its own page to an anchor tag. So I could do this, which kind of you could just keep because you're giving a link to its own page. I could just do that as well, right? And there's actually reasons you wouldn't, more from a just having a code consistency. Oh, and on the About, I also need to here's the other thing I would say to you is the more you start changing this content now, right? Because once I create one of these pages and I have everything linked up correctly, then copying it for my other pages will make it much easier. Okay. And you'll see that as we move, because on this, well, that's what you need to do for here. So, what you want to do is push that code, okay, push those changes out to GitHub IO and give us a link, right, to your GitHub IO and, discuss how this was for you. And here's what I'm saying in here, and here's some of what you saw me do today, right? Do some cleanup or start changing it, start figuring out how you want to change it. Actually, I did both in this case, right? So again, this is a step towards our project zero. So I hope this helps you. No replies required, but it is good to review other folks' their work. But the link is really important. Remember, give us a link to the GitHub IO. All right. Talk to you later.